My new neighbor is a beautiful woman who reveals propriety and self-restraint in every gesture. I became closer and closer to her. So close that my husband couldn't stand it. "Keep your distance from her," he said. I didn't take it seriously and replied, "What? Do you also think she's a homewrecker?" I didn't pay attention to my husband's words and still had frequent contacts with her. Until one day, when I came back from outside, I found a pair of lace panties on my bed. I recognized them as the ones she bought when I went shopping with her. It was just getting light. Kari turned over in bed and habitually hugged me from behind. Without opening my eyes, I felt a gentle kiss on my shoulder. "Honey, did I fall asleep again yesterday?" His warm, big palm slowly moved up along my waist and abdomen, and his smiling voice tickled my neck. "When have you ever been able to stay awake until the end of a movie?" I held down the hand that was playing tricks on my chest and turned around in Kari's arms. Did the heroine forgive her husband in the end? Well, sort of. How could she forgive him? He clearly had an affair. Kari gently hugged me, and his deep eyes were full of tenderness. "Silly girl. Why are you so indignant? It's just a movie." I put my hands around his neck. "What about us?" "Us?" Kari was stunned for a couple of seconds as if he had heard a joke. He bent his finger and gently scraped the tip of my nose. I should reflect on where I haven't done well enough that my wife would have such doubts. I watched him roll out of bed. His upper body was muscular, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and his sexy abdominal muscles disappearing into his loose pajama pants. Every inch of his body was the result of years of persistent exercise. Kari's self-discipline was reflected in every aspect of life, including emotions. I had been married to him for 7 years, and he was an impeccable husband. More importantly, all his tenderness was reserved for me alone. Everyone said that I must have saved the Milky Way in my previous life to meet a man like Kari. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that statement, and I never doubted it until a week ago. I saw a message pop up on his phone. "After acting with her for all these years. Don't tell me you're serious?" Then what am I? I was trying to accept the fact that Kari had been unfaithful to me emotionally. I was trying hard because I couldn't find any signs of his infidelity. I married him right after graduating from university and accompanied him in starting his business. I watched him grow from nothing to become President Kari with a successful career. Both of our social circles were extremely transparent. Moreover, Kari was too upright. As the company gradually got on the right track, at those glamorous business entertainment parties where other men were flirting with different women, Kari would call me, "Honey, come and save me." The only woman by his side had always been me. I got out of bed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Kari's phone lying quietly on the bedside table. Look, he had never been on guard against me. He just left his phone around casually, and I could check it whenever I wanted because the password was my birthday. Once upon a time, I was disdainful of checking someone's phone. But when something like this happened to me, everyone would unavoidably become a Sherlock Holmes. Kari had wife pinned at the top of his WeChat contacts, and the content was his report to me the night before last. "Judith, I have an entertainment event tonight. Go to bed first and don't wait for me." I scrolled down bit by bit, trying to find some clues, but found nothing. Then I thought of that text message. I thought to myself that it should have been deleted. My fingers subconsciously clicked on it. I paused. That text message was still there. And then I saw Kari's reply. Wrong message. Kari was tying his tie in front of the mirror. I took the tie from his hand and tied the blue-green tie meticulously. "Do you still have entertainment events tonight?" Kari slightly tilted his neck. "The new product has just been launched on the market, and there are too many things that require my personal attention." He seemed to realize something. "Are you bored at home? Why don't you come to work with me? You can just sit quietly and keep me company." I straightened the Windsor knot around his neck and chuckled. Kari glared at me. "What are you laughing at?" I blinked at him like an innocent little girl. "I'm laughing at President Kari having two different faces. You're so majestic in public, but so clingy in private. You even want your wife to accompany you to work." Kari bent down, and his high-bridged nose rubbed against the tip of my nose. "I don't care what others think. I just want to be able to see you whenever I look up." I smiled and dodged. I'll wait for you at home. Come back early after your entertainment. Kari chuckled. Mrs. Kari, will you see me off? As soon as my husband and I walked out of the door, we met our new neighbor who had just come back from running outside. Her tight sportswear outlined her excellent figure even more attractively. As soon as the elevator door closed, I pushed Kari. Husband, would you like a woman like her? Kari frowned. Stop asking such silly questions. I saw Kari off downstairs. On my way back, I ran into Aunt Fang upstairs. Aunt Fang had just retired and was usually keen on gossip. She wouldn't let anyone go once she caught them. Mrs. Kari, you should keep an eye on your husband. He's such a talented and handsome man. Don't let some seductive woman set her sights on him. Aunt Fang, you're joking. In broad daylight. Where would there be any seductive women? Besides, Kari wouldn't do that. Aunt Fang came closer. Let me tell you. The new neighbor next door to you is no easy character. Who would go out wearing just underwear during the day? I put my hand on my forehead. Aunt Fang. That's a sports bra. Coincidentally, hadn't fulfilled my answer. The elevator door opened. And I shook my head with a smile and walked out. Before I could stop smiling, I happened to meet a pair of clear and bright eyes. The person that Aunt Fang and I were talking about was standing at my door holding a cardboard box. Hello, Miss Judith. I'm Bailey. I'm new here. I baked some cookies and brought them for you to try. I invited Bailey in and asked her to make herself at home. She sat upright in a corner of the sofa and asked me, looking at the photos on the wall, Miss Judith, were you a ballet dancer? I put the water on the coffee table in front of her. It was a long time ago. Bailey smiled gently. What a coincidence. I was too. I became interested and looked at the woman in front of me again. She had a long swan-like neck, a beautiful face, and an elegant temperament all over her. Seriously, having fulfilled my answer, I even felt that she looked somehow familiar in a way that was hard to describe. Since we had a common experience, we naturally had a pleasant conversation and even talked about why she had moved. My husband is a businessman from Taiwan. He was always on business trips, and we rarely got together. Later, he had an affair, and we got divorced. She seemed to be talking about an extremely ordinary thing. When I saw that there was a house for rent here, I moved in. I'm sorry. I felt a bit embarrassed to bring up such a topic with someone I had just met. Unexpectedly, she smiled gently. It's okay. Anyway, it's all in the past. I was stunned for a couple of seconds. She slightly curved her red lips. Just kidding. In the evening, I was standing on the balcony enjoying the breeze when I heard approaching footsteps. Soon, let out a low sigh. My shoulders were wrapped in a coat. Didn't I tell you not to wait for me? And the autumn wind is chilly. Don't you know to put on some clothes? I leaned against his broad chest. I'm not cold. Kari hugged me from behind, held my slightly cold fingers, and his voice became deeper. Still saying you're not cold? I tightened the coat around me and turned to look at Kari. I have a coat and my husband's hug. What's there to be afraid of? Kari's voice softened instantly. You know I can't do anything about you. All along, Kari had been my support. Over the years, I had been the sole recipient of all his doting love. I knew that as long as he was around, he wouldn't let me go hungry or cold. I turned around in Kari's arms and stared into his eyes. Husband, was work smooth today? Well, it was a busy day, and I'm a bit tired. As Kari spoke, he loosened the tie around his neck. Kari was always so meticulous. The buttons on his shirt were always fastened up to the top one, and the tie wouldn't be loose until he got home. However, looking at the knot that Kari was holding, I felt a bit dazed. In the morning when he left, I tied a Windsor knot for him. But now it was a complicated pine knot. Kari came out of the bathroom and pulled me into his arms. As usual, I shared my day with him, especially about our new neighbor today. Kari clearly wasn't very interested. He just focused on unbuttoning my clothes, burying his head in my neck and gradually igniting the passion. I ran my fingers through his hair and had a sudden thought. Kari, can we still have a child? Kari's wandering hand suddenly stopped. After a long while, He let go of me and got up. Judith? We agreed not to mention this anymore. Have you forgotten? A bitter feeling rose in my heart. The baby came to my dream last night. She was sitting at the top of the stairs, reaching out her hands for me to hold her. I didn't look at Kari and just kept talking. If she had been born smoothly, she should be able to walk by now. Right? Enough. Kari's face darkened in an instant. Judith, how long are you going to torture yourself and me? His eyebrows furrowed tightly. The baby is gone. Gone forever. He got out of bed. I'll sleep in the study. You got to bed early. My smile froze on my lips. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. Kari's and my baby was gone. 2 years ago. Right after I finished my tour in Beijing. I rushed back to celebrate Kari's birthday and share 2 pieces of good news. One was that I had been promoted to the principal dancer of the dance troupe. And the other was that I was pregnant. To surprise Kari, I didn't tell him in advance that I was coming back. But when I got home, Lucky, our usually obedient border collie, suddenly went crazy and pounced on me. It bit the hem of my skirt and dragged me towards the inner room. The moment I entered the room, I was so shocked that I couldn't make a sound. The photos that I had hung on the wall and the honor trophies I had won over the years were all smashed on the ground. I bent down to pick them up, but unexpectedly, the storage room that had been closed all along suddenly opened. And there happened to be slippery body wash on the floor. I slipped and rolled down the stairs. My baby was frozen at the stage before it was fully formed. And I was told by the doctor that the possibility of getting pregnant again was extremely slim. Moreover, my legs that had danced ballet could no longer stand on tiptoe. Overnight, I lost the things I cherished most, my baby, my proud dance career, and Lucky. Kari said that the reason for the mess at home was that Lucky had suddenly contracted rabies. During my hospitalization, Lucky was euthanized. I always thought it was my carelessness that failed to protect my child and Lucky, who had been with me for 7 years like a family member. As for the stage where I had sweated so much, I would never be able to step onto it again. My world seemed to have fallen into a swamp and was sinking bit by bit. It was Kari who pulled me out of it forcefully and told me that life had to move forward. He had never blamed me for this incident. Instead, he treated me even better. As if everything in the past had been wiped clean. Only I knew that it was just as if. Kari was still the gentlemanly, refined, and loving husband who took good care of his family in everyone's eyes. But between us, we could no longer calmly talk about having a child. Outsiders all say that I'm a lucky full-time housewife, sheltered by my husband and free from the harshness of society. Only I myself know that I'm just a parasite living under the name of Mrs. Kari and relying on him. Most of the time when I'm at home, it's actually quite boring. All I do is to figure out what new dishes to cook for Kari. Coincidentally, my new neighbor is not only beautiful but also dexterous. She offered to teach me how to make Western food. I readily agreed and learned it very seriously. I really admire Bailey. She seems to know my husband's tastes inside out. Every time she suggests a dish for me to make, it always suits my husband's appetite. The tense atmosphere between Kari and me in the past few days seemed to ease because of these dishes these days. Kari specially asked someone to airlift naturally ripe and cherries from other places. I picked some and put them in a container. Then rang the doorbell of Bailey's house. The moment the door opened, I took a sharp breath and asked awkwardly, "Am I coming at a bad time today?" Bailey smiled. The corners of her crimson eyes lifted upwards, like hooks that tugged at people's hearts. What's more, she was loosely wearing a nightgown, and there were visible red marks on her fair neck. We're all adults. There's no need to think hard to know what had happened. Come in and sit down? She stepped aside. Now? I lowered my voice. Is it convenient now? There's nothing inconvenient. He's asleep and won't wake up for a while. Before I could refuse, Bailey had already taken my arm and pulled me into the house. I blushed. It was because I saw that clothes were scattered all over the floor in the living room, blatantly showing the madness that had happened here. I couldn't help but look at Bailey again. So the phrase pure yet sexy really exists. Even as a woman, I blushed when I saw her. Bailey didn't treat me as an outsider at all. She didn't show any sign of embarrassment and even calmly picked up those clothes and put them into the laundry basket. After cleaning up almost everything, she looked at what I was holding in my arms. "What did you bring me?" I handed her the cherries. "How did you know I like cherries?" "Really? That's great. Then have more. If it's not enough, I still have some at home." Bailey picked up one and examined it. "These are the first batch of naturally ripe and cherries from Yente. They're only available for 2 weeks in a year. You can taste them as soon as they're available." "Judith, Mr. Kari is really nice to you." I smiled and was just about to speak. There was a crisp sound coming from the direction of the bedroom, as if something had been accidentally broken. "Did we disturb your friend?" I looked embarrassed. Bailey smiled. "It's okay. By the way, Judith, are you free this afternoon? Accompany me shopping." "Shopping?" Bailey's eyes sparkled. She leaned close to my ear. "He's so wild that all his clothes, inside and out, were torn by him. I always need to buy some new ones." Bailey left me in the living room, saying that she was going back to the bedroom to change clothes. Since she didn't feel embarrassed, there was no need for me to be restrained either. This was the first time I entered her house, and also the first time I carefully looked at her living space. It's said that the state of a person's home usually reveals the owner's living habits. The decoration and furnishings were simple and elegant, without too much decoration. The details showed the owner's good taste. The Western-style candles on the dining table were still burning quietly. Obviously, having fulfilled wisely. A romantic lunch had been held at this place not long ago. I glanced at the dishes on the table. They were all the ones that Bailey had taught me to make. I knew how time-consuming and laborious it was to make this whole table of dishes. Presumably, the person in her bedroom must be very special to her. I turned around and was stunned for a moment. There was an enlarged photo on the wall. The woman under the spotlight was wearing a white ballet leotard and standing on tiptoe. It was Bailey. I knew that she had also learned ballet, so I wasn't surprised by this photo. What surprised me was that in an inconspicuous corner of the photo, there was a woman in a black leotard who was bending over to take off her pointe shoes. This photo was taken 2 years ago. Bailey had already walked to my side without my noticing and took the initiative to tell me. At that time, a dance troupe was openly selecting new principal dancers. I danced a variation of the Swan Lake as the White Swan. It must have been very beautiful. I could imagine what she looked like when she was dancing. Just so. Otherwise, how could I had she paused and looked at me with a smile. Lost to the Black Swan. Bailey had a calm expression, as if she was just recalling an insignificant past event. Unlike me, having fulfilled my heart was actually in turmoil. Because that dancer in the black leotard was me. Back then, I only participated in this selection on a whim. And besides, I didn't stay in that troupe in the end. Indeed, fate can be quite magical sometimes. It turned out that my former rival was my new neighbor. By the way, this photo was taken by that person. Bailey pointed to the closed door. He said that I'll always be the only principal dancer in his heart. I responded gracefully. A good judge of talent and a bosom friend are priceless. That person really appreciates you. Bailey's smile grew deeper. However, I think you, Judith, have more of the air of a principal dancer. She took my arm. Let's go, Chief Judith. Let's go shopping. I followed Bailey. When I went out, I turned around and took another look at the photo on the wall and the always closed door of the bedroom. Bailey has a great figure. Any clothes look good on her. Coincidentally, her taste in clothes is quite similar to mine. We both like simple and elegant styles that focus on the essence. After getting along with her during this period of time, I even feel that there are many similarities between us. Of course, we're not exactly the same. For example, when it comes to choosing underwear, she's as bold as can be, which is completely different from me. Judith, try this. Bailey stuffed a set of extremely sexy underwear into my arms. The lace fabric as thin as a cicada's wings fell into my hands. I blushed. Is there really a need to use so little fabric? Bailey's red lips curved upwards. Do you know that what men like is contrast? She leaned close to my ear and said word by word, I've tested it myself. I smiled and stuffed the underwear back to her. Then you should buy it and let it play its role well. Bailey hooked the sexy underwear with her finger and just looked at me quietly. After a long while, she burst out laughing. Judith. You really don't understand men. I don't know if it was an illusion, but I seemed to see some special emotions in her eyes at this moment. It seemed like pity. And also like disdain. But before I could take a closer look, she had already taken the set of underwear to the salesperson and said, I'll pay for it. When I got home, I was a bit surprised to see Kari. Why are you back so early today? Kari looked at the paper bag in my hand and asked me instead, did you go shopping? Yes, Heather, with Miss Bailey next door. He closed the book in his hand and pulled me into his arms. Keep your distance from her. I smiled. Why? Do you also believe the gossip outside and think that she's a mistress? Kari was silent for a moment. Husband. Why don't you like her? I looked into his eyes and slowly curved my lips. You shouldn't dislike her that much. After all, Miss Bailey and I are so similar. Kari spat out 2 words. Boring. I played with his fingers. By the way, husband, where did you go at noon today? Kari's pupils contracted slightly, but it was only for 2 seconds. Then his eyes regained their unfathomable calmness, and he asked me instead, Judith, did you take your medicine? I felt a lump in my throat. Kari pulled his hand away and got up. I've told you many times that you should take your medicine on time so that you won't be prone to wild thoughts. Yes, having so still wide sigh. After that accident, I suffered from an emotional disorder. If Kari hadn't reminded me, I would have forgotten that I was still a patient. I went to the hospital at noon and picked up your medicine for half a month. Kari walked towards the storage cabinet and took out a medicine bottle. I looked at Kari's back. He was as imposing as a mountain. When I was 18, I fell in love with him because of this back. I thought that he would be the mountain that I could rely on for my whole life. I walked slowly towards him and hugged him from behind. Husband. When I was shopping in the mall at noon, I saw someone whose back looked a lot like yours. After saying this, I felt that Kari's originally tense back seemed to relax a little. He pulled me into his arms, with his chin resting on my forehead. I'm sorry. I've been so busy with work recently that I've neglected you. Next time, I'll accompany you shopping. Okay? I nodded in his arms. Take your medicine obediently. I still need to go to the company. Okay. Kari handed me the medicine bottle, kissed my forehead and then left. I looked at the closed door and slowly raised the medicine in my hand. The white pills rolled one by one into the wet waste disposal machine. I had stopped taking this medicine for a long time. Kari has been coming back early these days. I can feel that he's really spending time with me. In front of the kitchen counter, he hugged me from behind. The dishes cooked by my wife are better than those in Michelin-starred restaurants. It's so nice to have a virtuous wife. When it comes to providing emotional value, Kari oft and does an excellent job. My wife and virtuous wife are phrases he often says. Why did you cook so many dishes today? He gently bit my earlobe and asked. I gently broke free from him. Husband. I've invited guests. The moment Kari looked puzzled. The doorbell rang just in time. Coming. I smiled at him and then went to open the door. Bailey came in and was a bit surprised. Mr. Kari is at home? Bailey has very beautiful eyes. When she looked straight at people, her eyes are full of charm. At this moment, she was looking straight at Kari. Kari seemed to be in a daze for 2 seconds, and then replied with no emotion. Yes. His cold face, coupled with such a response, somehow made him seem a bit unsociable. The air was a bit quiet. I led Bailey inside. Bailey, my husband has this kind of indifferent personality. Please don't mind. Bailey's eyes sparkled, and her red lips curved slightly. Of course not. Mr. Kari clearly looks like a person who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Kari's face became even colder for no reason. At the dinner table, I looked at Bailey sitting opposite Kari and asked. It's just a meal. Why did you bring something? Courtesy demands reciprocity. Bailey smiled with her eyes narrowed. After tasting the cherries you gave me last time, I've been thinking about them all the time. Finally, Having fulfilled my sigh, I begged my guide to get these. Judith, would you like to try some? I took them. The shape of these fruits is very similar to the batch at my home. I handed the cherries to Kari. Husband, don't you think so? Kari was unusually quiet today. No matter what we said, he was reluctant to participate and even had his eyebrows slightly furrowed all the time. However he looked at it. He didn't seem to welcome the guest today. But Bailey didn't care at all. There was always a gentle smile at the corners of her mouth and eyes. She looked at the dishes on the table. Judith, your cooking skills are getting better and better. I'm afraid you've learned all my tricks of pleasing people. Do you still need to win someone's heart by winning his stomach? I joked with a smile. Has your theory of contrast stopped working? Of course not. Bailey's eyes swept over somewhere and then landed on my face. Her tone was confident and certain. No one knows better than me what he really wants. I played along and nudged Kari, who was quietly peeling shrimps beside me. Husband, do you know what contrast is? Kari's hand that was peeling the shrimps stopped. He really seemed not to understand what I meant by asking this. I looked serious. Am I very boring in your eyes? Bailey also looked at him. After a long while, he softly said 2 words. No. I pressed on. Then what do you like more about me? You're fine as you are now. What if Kari put the peeled shrimps in his hand into my bowl and said, why are you talking so much? Just eat your meal. I stopped talking. However, when Bailey saw Kari putting shrimps into my bowl, she became interested. Judith, you and Mr. Kari have such a good relationship. I'm suddenly curious about your love story. It must have been Mr. Kari who chased you. Right? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere somehow became a bit quieter. But when a guest asks a question, there's no reason not to answer. I smiled and said, no, I was the one who chased him back then. And it took me a lot of effort. It was indeed me who chased Kari back then. On the first day of university registration, Kari, as the president of the student union, was welcoming new students on campus. I'll never forget how Kari looked that day. He was wearing a clearly washed-out white shirt. But he still managed to look elegant and handsome in it. He took the suitcase from my hand and said gently, classmate, let me help you. At that moment, my heart was touched. From that day on, I wholeheartedly fell in love with this man and didn't hide my feelings at all. Soon, all the teachers and students in the school knew that Judith, a freshman in the dance department, was chasing Kari, a junior in the economics and management department. Kari was outstanding and excellent in every aspect. The only thing that could hardly be called a shortcoming was that his family was poor. But for me, who was young and inexperienced at that time, this was also his advantage. At least I could find him precisely at the places where he worked part-time to earn money. Then I tried to be nice to him in my own way, such as giving him the fried buns that I had craved for 2 hours to buy in the cold winter. However, Kari's heart was so hard to win over. I didn't succeed even when he graduated. Just when I was about to give up, he showed up in front of me. It was pouring rain that day. He, who had already graduated, appeared on campus soaking wet and asked me, Judith, do you still want me? Happiness came so suddenly that I was both overjoyed and a bit scared, thinking it was a dream. But reality told me it wasn't. Even in the year I graduated, he directly put a ring on my ring finger and said, Judith, let's get married. Although the size of that ring seemed a bit too big, at that moment, I still felt that I had the whole world. After marriage, Kari was an impeccable good husband. What touched me the most was that he accompanied me to as many of my performances as possible, including that dance troupe selection. He seemed to care more about it than I did, paying attention to every detail of the selection. That day, I won the first place for him when I saw him waiting off the stage. But he didn't seem happy, and I felt very guilty about it. I should have told him earlier that I actually had a better opportunity, instead of letting him accompany me for nothing. However, this matter soon passed, because Kari's company got on the right track. He was so smart that I never doubted that he would be more and more successful. But what followed was, he became busier and busier. So busy that he no longer had time to watch my performances. I pulled myself back from the short memories and found that Kari's face at the dinner table suddenly became as gloomy as iron. I looked at Bailey and tried to smooth things over. My husband is rather traditional and doesn't like to talk about things like our love history. Bailey stared straight at Kari. Not afraid of his icy face at all. Mr. Kari is so stingy, she said. These words somehow sounded like a girl's coquettish complaint. I'm full. I still have work to deal with. Kari suddenly put down his chopsticks. Got up and went into the study. I apologized to Bailey. But she didn't care at all and seemed to have a better appetite. This meal ended in a somewhat strange but still peaceful atmosphere. In the evening, I went to the study to find Kari. Kari was sitting behind the large desk. A document was spread out in front of him. His face was as cold and focused as usual. I knocked on the door. He looked up and then froze. Under his gaze, I walked towards him step by step. Then, I straddled him. Kari almost instinctively held my lower back. His palms were warm and strong. I held his face with both hands and kissed him gently bit by bit. His handsome eyebrows and eyes. His high-bridged nose. His thin lips. Kari's breathing became heavier and heavier. I could feel that his body was extremely tense. Judith. He called me. His voice was no longer as calm as usual, but hoarse with suppressed desire. I knew what he was longing for. But I stopped. I stared into his eyes and called his name. Kari. Kari looked at me with his eyes turning red. I leaned close to his ear. Breathed softly and asked, "Do you like me like this?" His rolling Adam's apple was his silent but powerful answer. I smiled and said, "I knew it." Sexy and bold lingerie and proactive flirting moves didn't originally exist in the dictionary of my relationship with Kari. Kari once told me that he didn't like women who were too proactive. He liked me when I was well behaved. So when it came to our intimate moments, I had always been the conservative and passive one. But today, I suddenly wanted to be a bit wild. Judith. Kari chased after my lips to kiss me. I dodged and pushed him back hard into the high-backed chair. I swept all the documents on the desk aside, sat on the desk, and put one foot on Kari's thigh wrapped in suit pants. For the first time, I looked down at him. Kari's eyes became darker. "Kari, do you love me?" He answered with a muffled groan. "Yes." At this moment, I smiled, and my eyes became a bit sore from smiling. "Kari, do you know what this is called?" I increased the pressure of my foot on him, looked at him with charming eyes, and said, "This is called contrast." I said word by word. Bailey taught me this. The fire of desire in Kari's eyes seemed to cool down in an instant. I pretended to be innocent and said, "Husband, do you want to do it in other places? Like the living room? The sofa? Or?" I knocked on the cold and large desk and said, "Here is okay too." The atmosphere seemed to freeze. I don't know how long passed. Kari got up, and his black eyes seemed to be filled with unfathomable undercurrents. "Judith? You really should go see a psychologist." I took Kari's advice. I not only went to see a psychologist but also stayed in the hospital's convalescence center. I liked it here very much. It was far away from the noise of the city. Most importantly, there was a border collie here named Cool. It was as obedient and clingy as Lucky. Most of my time every day was spent staying with it and basking in the sun in the small garden. Every time the nurse saw me, she would say it was strange. She said that Cool completely took after its owner's personality. Otherwise, it wouldn't have such a name. She wondered why it got along so well with me. I smiled and asked, "Who is its owner? Why does he leave Cool here without taking care of it?" The little nurse blushed and said, "It's Drive. Milo. He's been on a business trip recently to give public welfare health lectures. Cool is temporarily fostered here these days. But Drive. Milo will be back tomorrow." The little nurse said that Cool was just like its name. When I met Milo, I felt that he was just like his name too. I had never met such a taciturn person who was so sparing with words. "Thanks," he said. He hardly even looked at me directly. He took the leash from my hand, turned around and was about to leave. Cool scratched the ground with its front paws and barked at me non-stop. "Dr. Milo," I called him. "Can I go to see Cool?" As you like, he said. All right. Considering that this man looked upright and had agreed, I forgave his lack of enthusiasm. But the next day, I found that Milo had lied to me. He didn't bring Cool to the convalescence center at all. I went to find him. And he asked the nurse to tell me that if I wanted to see him, I should register at the outpatient hall. I waited until it was dark and saw Milo coming out of the outpatient building looking tired. Dr. Milo. I went up to him. Milo was obviously surprised to see me. Why are you still here? I'm here to see Cool. Don't tell me you've been waiting since this morning? I found an excuse for myself and said, I don't have anything else to do anyway. I also added in a flattering way. Besides, I couldn't get an appointment with you. Milo was clearly speechless. He was stunned for a while and then asked, Have you eaten? I shook my head honestly. At the hospital convenience store, Milo handed me a sweet potato and said, Why are you so persistent in wanting to see Cool? I was honest and said, It's very similar to my Lucky. Oh, Lucky was my family member who had been with me for many years. It was also a border collie. But it's gone now. Milo fell silent again. I thought for a moment and asked, Dr. Ive. Milo, can I still see Cool today? It's too late today. I'll bring Cool to see you tomorrow. Really? My eyes lit up. He looked at me and nodded. His eyes fell on the sweet potato in my hand. Eat some. You haven't eaten for a long time. It's good for your stomach to have some dietary fiber. That night, I changed my opinion of Milo a little. And then, I realized that this man who seemed to keep people at a distance on the surface was actually quite warm-hearted, because he had brought Cool to accompany me for several consecutive days. Although he still didn't talk much. I was running on the lawn with Cool. And I seemed to be able to hear my own heartbeat. Thump. Thump. My lifeless body seemed to be injected with a spring of life. Then I turned around and saw Milo quietly watching us playing in the sunlight. I picked up Cool, smiled and shouted at him. Dr. Ive. Milo. Thank you. At this moment, my smile and my gratitude were from the bottom of my heart. But it only lasted for 2 seconds. My smile froze on my lips. I saw Kari, who had appeared behind Milo at some point. Our eyes met. And I caught the dark storm in Kari's eyes. He strode forward, pulled me into his arms as if there was no one else around, and said, You're such a grown-up, but you still act like a child. Look at the sweat on your head. I gently pushed him away and said, Husband. We're outside. Kari narrowed his eyes and then looked at Milo. Who is this? I stepped out of Kari's arms and said, Milo. Dr. Milo. Kari was about to reach out his hand. Milo suddenly squatted down and called to Cool, who was rolling on the ground. Cool. Let's go. Cool happily ran over. When passing by me, it didn't forget to rub against me affectionately a few times. Milo rubbed Cool's head and said, Look at you. So shameless. You're addicted to being a bootlicker. Then he picked up Cool and left without looking back. I watched his back as he completely ignored Kari and left. Somehow, I found it a bit funny. He was really a man who wore his likes and dislikes on his sleeve, disdained worldly affairs and was unrestrained. Judith. Kari called me. You seem to like it here very much. I withdrew my gaze and looked at Kari. The corners of his mouth were tightly pursed, and the lines of his face were tense. I knew that in this state, he was suppressing great anger. Since we're here, we might as well make the best of it. Besides, it was you, husband, who said I was sick. I'm doing it for your good, he said. I smiled lightly and said, I know. So here I am. After our eyes met for a while, Kari seemed to give in. His tone became gentle and coaxing. Judith? Let's go home. Okay? The car was driving quietly on the road. And I turned my head to look out of the window. The chilly autumn air was thick with melancholy. And leaves were falling one after another. It seemed that overnight, the world was once again left in a state of desolation. Suddenly, I remembered 2 years ago. It was also this kind of weather when Kari brought me back from the hospital. I didn't say a word. Didn't eat. Didn't drink. And didn't sleep. I didn't dare to sleep because as soon as I closed my eyes, I would see the blurry face of our baby babbling and Lucky barking nonstop. I even hurt myself. When I opened my eyes, I saw Kari's bloodshot eyes. His voice was hazy and filled with grief as he pleaded with me in a trembling voice. Judith. Please. Let's move on. Okay? Moving on in these 2 years. I've really been trying hard to move forward. Judith. Before I knew it, Kari had already brought me home. As soon as we entered the hallway, his kisses fell on me densely. Judith. I miss you. His breath and voice rustled into my ears, making them itchy. But all I wanted to do was to escape. Kari. There's someone here. I patted his shoulder. Kari stopped in astonishment, turned his head, and his eyes were full of shock. The person inside the house also seemed shocked. After being stunned for a long time, he or she finally spoke. Judith. Your door wasn't closed properly today. I thought you were at home. By the way, the bag we ordered has arrived. So I brought it in for you. I came out of the bathroom and saw Kari standing in front of the window smoking. I opened the window wider. Didn't you quit smoking? During the time when we lost our child, Kari smoked a lot, but he quit later. Kari. You know I don't like the smell of cigarettes. Sorry. Kari put out the cigarette and pulled me into his arms. Judith. Let's move. Move? Why? Work at the company is getting busier and busier now. And this place is a bit too far away. Besides, the house in the city center has been vacant for a long time. That house has been sold. Don't you remember? I looked at Kari. You said you had a friend who started a business with you and wanted to buy a house to get married. He didn't have much money at hand. So we sold that house to him at a price lower than the market price. That was the house in the north of the city. Not this one. Really? And I must have remembered it wrong. I paused for a moment. By the way, husband, where's the money from the house that was sold? Kari seemed to be in a daze for 2 seconds. Didn't I give you all the investment and business income at home? You should know better than I do where the money has gone. Did you use it to do some financial management? What Kari said left me with no way to refute. Another reason why everyone praised him was that he earned money, and then handed it over to me, allowing me to dispose of it as I liked. He said that was the sense of security he gave me. I admit that I was touched at that time. But not because of the so-called sense of security he mentioned. For me, a sense of security doesn't rely on money or Kari. I can only give it to myself. The touch was more because of trust. And I tried hard not to betray his trust. I was born into a financial family, and have been influenced by financial wisdom since childhood. Compared with Kari, who always prefers stability in everything, my investment vision is sometimes bolder and more unique. Over the years, just in terms of the income from my investment and financial management, it's actually no less than Kari's earnings. So I'm very sensitive to numbers and currencies. As for the money from the house sold in the north of the city, I'm sure I didn't receive it. But I still smiled at Kari. Maybe I really forgot. Kari let go of me. Go to sleep first. I'm going to take a shower. I watched him close the bathroom door and couldn't help laughing in my heart. Kari probably didn't even know that his eyelashes would tremble when he was nervous. And recently, the frequency of his eyelashes trembling was too high. I lifted the quilt and got into bed. And suddenly my body froze. A pair of black lace panties suddenly caught my eye. I stood there in a daze for a long time and then silently put them away. I recognized these panties. They were the ones that Bailey bought when we went shopping together. I made an appointment with Bailey for afternoon tea. She left something at my house. And of course I had to return it to her. When our eyes met, she looked completely calm. Even when I put those panties in front of her, she remained unmoved. It wasn't until I said, "Bailey, I really feel sorry for you." She was obviously stunned for a few seconds before curling her lips into a smile. "Judith, I should be the one saying this to you." I fiddled with the teacup in front of me and replied calmly, "Really? Then tell me about it. Is it interesting to marry a man who doesn't love you and regards you as a substitute?" While speaking, Bailey opened the photo album on her phone and pushed it in front of me. In the photo, a young boy was carrying a beautiful girl on his back, smiling brightly like the sun. My eyes hurt a little. Kari. So he could smile like this too. Bailey told her story, from childhood to adulthood. I was the only one in his world. Whenever there was something delicious or fun, he would give it to me at the first time. Everyone said that we were a perfect match. If it weren't for this time, there was no trace of the usual gentleness and friendliness in her eyes. I saw undisguised hatred in them. I took over her words. Do you think the reason why you didn't end up together was because of me? I couldn't help laughing. Bailey, Kari was single in college. You never showed up in front of him. And he never mentioned you in front of anyone. As for marrying me, it was he who proposed it. I paused for a moment. I think you know better than I do why it turned out like this. Bailey's eyes flickered. After a long while, she replied, yes. The thing I regret most in my wife is marrying the wealthy businessman from Taiwan. But Judith, others may not know. But don't you know? To pursue a career in ballet, I needed financial support. I looked at her. Bailey, dancers show themselves through their dance postures. Besides, what matters in ballet is skill. Judith, it's easy to say if you were in my shoes. I realized that it was meaningless to talk to her about these things. And Bailey had taken off all her disguises. I know I'm sorry to Kari and I've paid the price for it. But Judith, Kari doesn't love you at all. She had a self-satisfied tone and a provocative smile. Do you know what we were doing under the table when you invited me to your house as a guest and I sat opposite Kari that day? Kari's suit pants are always neatly ironed and feel good on the feet. You usually iron them for him, right? Oh, by the way, during the days when you were away from home, she hooked that pair of lace panties with her index finger. Do you know what we did? I held the teacup in my hand and tried hard to suppress the nausea rising in my throat. I asked in return, do you think this is love? I stared into her eyes and repeated my initial words. So, Bailey, I feel sorry for you. If a man really loves you, the first and foremost thing is respect. He wouldn't have the heart to let you bear a bad reputation that can't be seen in the light and do immoral things that go against worldly ethics. And you, instead of seeing through this, are complacent and think that this is love. I smiled lightly. Don't you think it's ridiculous and sad? At this moment, Bailey clenched her hands tightly, and her hatred was clearly shown. I actually knew what she was thinking. I knew it from the moment she deliberately left her panties at my house. What she wanted was nothing more than for me to go crazy, preferably to have a fierce fight with Kari. Anyway, it wasn't for me to sit here calmly and say these things to her. Bailey's eyes turned red. Judith, what are you so proud of? Not long after Kari married you, he set up a home for me. He goes back to my place every week. You didn't know that, did you? I looked at her. Room 908. Kingshu Garden in the north of the city. Right? Bailey was stunned for a full half a minute. You've been following Kari? You knew it all along. I shook my head. It's not worth following. Since you're so eager to show up in front of me, why should I bother? Oh right. There's one thing that I took the initiative to do. I leaned forward slightly. The rental information for the house you're living in now was posted by me. That house is my prima merita property. And Kari doesn't know about it. You've been pretending all along. Bailey suddenly realized in shock. What's your purpose? I looked at her quietly. After a long while, I smiled at her. Bailey, I should thank you for being so proactive and so honest with me. If one day I divorce Kari, you've helped me a lot. Whether it's in terms of taking the initiative or dividing the couple's joint property. I picked up the phone that was lying upside down on the table. Did you record it? Bailey was no longer as calm as she was at the beginning. She snatched my phone as if she were snatching something precious and smashed it heavily on the ground. I sighed with pity. Why take it out on the phone? Don't you know it can be automatically backed up to the cloud? Bailey's face was distorted and looked completely unattractive at this moment. The more emotion she showed, the more she revealed her cards. Bailey's being so desperate to take my place actually made me certain that she must have been somehow provoked by Kari. I left Bailey with one last sentence. People who are truly confident of winning won't be eager to show their presence. Bailey, when you encounter such things in the future, you can try to be a bit more calm. After meeting Bailey, I went to the rehabilitation center. To be precise, It was downstairs of Milo's dormitory. In the rainstorm. Milo was silent when he saw me. He was stunned for several seconds before coming to his senses. He held an umbrella over my head and wrapped his coat, which still carried his body temperature, around me. I want to see cool. My face was wet with water, and I couldn't tell whether it was rain or tears. But the smile on my lips was wide enough to show my friendliness. Milo let me in. Cool was originally lying lazily on the sofa. The moment it saw me, it rushed over directly. I squatted down and hugged it, burying my face in its furry forehead. I've always believed that animals can understand human nature. Just like at this moment. Cool seemed to be able to sense my emotions. It let me hold it and gently rubbed against me. Do you want to take a hot shower first? The voice that spoiled the atmosphere came from above my head. You're all wet. And Cool might catch a cold. When I came out of the bathroom, I suddenly realized how inappropriate it was for me to show up here at this time and in this state. Fortunately, having fulfilled me, Milo threw me a brand new set of sportswear. After putting it on, although it was ridiculously big, it wouldn't arouse any wild thoughts. I rolled up the sleeves and went out. Come and have something to eat. Milo was sitting on the sofa and nodded towards the dining table. Cool bit the hem of my baggy trousers and dragged me towards the table. There was a bowl of tomato and egg noodles still steaming. Thank you. I thanked Milo after finishing the noodles. Did he bully you? Milo's question caught me a bit off guard. After thinking about it, I simply changed the topic. Has Drive Milo ever liked someone? Milo was obviously surprised by my sudden change of topic, but he still answered me. Yes. I was surprised at his honesty. And then? There's no then. You must be too cold and aloof, scaring people away. I stroked Cool's ears. Right. Cool. Cool barked 3 times in agreement. She had someone she liked and couldn't see me. She's married. Well, that ended the topic. Milo looked out of the window and said, the rain has eased off. Let's go. I'll take you home. Cool barked in protest. Then it turned around and somehow picked up a piece of A4 paper with its mouth and brought it to me. I was curious and reached out to take it. But Milo snatched it away. Are you coming or not? I don't really care. But you don't want to be the subject of gossip because of me. I suddenly came to my senses. Yes, having fulfilled my sigh. It was really inappropriate for a married woman to stay in an unmarried man's house at night. I followed him, but couldn't help adding, Dr. If. Milo. Why did you suddenly blush? Milo grabbed the umbrella by the entrance and said, you're seeing things. Forget it. I didn't want to tell him that I had very good eyesight. For example, for the piece of paper that Cool had just brought over. Although I didn't see the face clearly, I saw that it was a portrait sketch of a person. The outline clearly showed that it was a woman. Milo took me back to the convalescence center. We hardly communicated along the way. The only thing he said seemed to have been carefully considered for a long time. If your current life doesn't make you happy, cut your losses in time. I gave a soft said, thank you. The rain was still pattering down. We walked in silence. But at this moment, my heart felt a peace that I hadn't experienced for a long time. However, this feeling only lasted for a moment. Because at the entrance of the hospital, I saw the person I least wanted to see at the moment, Kari. The night wind mixed with raindrops was chilly, and the air pressure around Kari was even colder than the surrounding environment. His eyes swept coldly over Milo and finally landed on my ill-fitting clothes. He asked in an accusatory tone, why didn't you answer the phone? Why did you come here again? I just found these words funny. I walked around him, just wanting to leave. My wrist was grabbed. Kari's eyes were filled with anger. Judith. What's wrong with you? Am I not enough for you? Milo clenched his fists. Mr. Kari. I suggest you act like a decent person. Kari's brows showed bone-deep indifference. Make it clear. She's my wife. You've crossed the line. Your wife. Milo frowned tightly. You insult others without distinguishing right from wrong. How dare you say you're her husband? Enough. Looking at the 2 men who were confronting each other in front of me, I just felt suffocated and choked in my chest. Judging from Kari's current attitude, I guessed that he probably didn't know yet that I had already had a showdown with Bailey. As for Milo. Dr. Milo. Thank you for today. This is really my family matter. You can go back now. Milo opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something but then stopped. I smiled at him. I'll go to see Cool another day. Judith. Kari's voice already carried a warning that he had lost his patience. I pretended not to hear it. Walked around Kari and got into the car. When Kari sped away with a stomp on the accelerator, I saw from the rearview mirror that Milo was still standing there. He looked so desolate in the rainy night. I must have had a confused memory. I actually felt that this scene and Milo seemed to be familiar. As if I had seen them somewhere before. This inappropriate thought was quickly dispersed by Kari's speeding car. Kari. It was a red light just now. My reminder was useless. The car was speeding and soon rushed into the underground garage. I was dragged into the house almost roughly and then thrown onto the bed. Kari pressed on top of me. Like a fierce beast breaking out of its cage. Tearing at the clothes on my body. Am I so unable to satisfy you that you go to find other men? Kari's eyes were bloodshot and he had completely lost his sanity. Without waiting for me to say anything, he kissed me. But this wasn't a kiss. It was more like a ruthless plunder. He didn't even seem to leave me a chance to breathe. Have you already slept with him? The tricks to please men in the living room and on the sofa, were they all taught by him? Huh? These words were like rusty knives. The dull knife stabbed into my heart and tore out large pieces of bloody flesh. The words I wanted to refute were all swallowed back at this moment. The dead silence at this moment was like fuel for Kari's anger. This was a silent battle. Speak. I bit my lip and didn't say a word. His actions became even more intense. Every move seemed to be revenge and punishment for my supposed infidelity. But clearly, I was the one who should be the most aggrieved. At this moment, my soul and body seemed to separate. My body was like fish on a chopping board, forced to endure Kari's rough treatment. My soul floated in the air, coldly watching the mess on the bed. And asking myself, Judith, this is the man you've loved for so many years. The white fluorescent lamp above my head hurt my eyes. Tears had already soaked the pillowcase. I don't know how long passed before Kari finally got off me. Judith? You can't fall in love with other men. You love me. You can only love me. Do you understand? I turned to my side and curled myself up like a silkworm cocoon. Kari regained some sanity. His lips touched the corner of my eye, showing pity. Judith. I'm sorry. He carefully hugged me from behind. I know I haven't accompanied you enough and have ignored your feelings. I promise you that I'll spend more time with you in the future. Okay? You want a child. Right? Let's work hard. We'll definitely have one again. I had my back to him. And neither of us could see the other's face clearly. Kari. I called him. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. Judith. I'm here. He replied eagerly. Let's get divorced, I said softly. I uttered these words gently and felt his body behind me suddenly go stiff. What? What did you say? I turned around to face his eyes and said word by word. I said, Kari. Let's get divorced. I was locked up at home by Kari. He said that divorce was out of the question. I didn't understand why he could say such gentle words to me, and then turn around and deceive me so calmly and composedly. I also didn't understand why I offered divorce to help him and his first love be together. But he refused me in the most brutal way. Now I'm a full-time housewife who isn't even allowed to leave the house. Kari spent more and more time at home. He even took care of all the household chores, including cooking. In the kitchen, he took off his apron and then carried me to the dining table. Judith, open your mouth. He held a porcelain spoon and brought it to my mouth. I raised my hand. There was a crisp sound. The spoon and the food he had just cooked were all splashed out. Kari's hand still maintained the action of holding the spoon. He was stunned for several seconds before speaking. It's okay. Judith. You don't want to eat this. Right? I'll make it again for you. Kari bent down and cleaned up the mess on the floor with his bare hands. The sharp fragments had already cut his hands and made them bleed. He didn't seem to feel the pain at all. Kari had been in this state these days. Neither happy nor sad. neither angry nor annoyed. He was acting like a considerate and loving husband, trying to create an illusion of peace. He didn't feel tired, but I was exhausted. Kari. You actually already know, I said. His action of picking up the fragments suddenly froze. You clearly know that I've already found out about you and Bailey, I said in a low voice. But I knew he could hear me. You're so smart. I've hinted at it time and time again. You couldn't have failed to understand. You just didn't want to understand. Or rather, you're so confident. You're confident that even if I knew, I wouldn't expose it because now I'm so alone and desolate. And you're the only one in my world. My voice was calm, but tears couldn't help flowing down my cheeks. So, Kari, is this the reason why you feel so confident to hurt me? Having said this, I knew that Kari could no longer deceive himself. Sure enough, he looked up. His face was very pale. A sickly pale. Judith, I'm sorry. Sorry? I repeated these 3 words and couldn't help laughing bitterly. When you two were doing that kind of thing right under my nose, on our bed, did you feel sorry at all? When you turned around and slandered me instead, did you feel sorry at all? Judith, it's not like that. I didn't do it with her in our house. I suddenly interrupted him. Kari, are you still quibbling over words at this time? The point is whether you've ever done it with her or not. He was choked and the next sec and he got up to hug me. Don't touch me. Almost out of instinct, I shouted at him. Kari had no pride left. He took my hand and put it on his face. Judith, hit me. You can vent your anger however you want. Don't be like this. Let's start over. Okay? Start over? I laughed. What about the unrequited love you've hidden in your heart for so many years? I admit that Bailey and I had a past, but it was because of unwillingness. I love you now. Really you. Believe me. Believe you? Do you know how much I used to trust you? So much that I started to doubt myself. Wondering if I was really sick. Kari, you were the one who kept telling me to lead a normal life. But you were also the one who constantly reminded me that I was sick. Kari's eyes were completely red. Judith? Forgive me this time. Okay? Forgive? My voice couldn't help trembling. Let me ask you. When I came back from the tour in Beijing 2 years ago, was Bailey in our house? Was it Lucky or her who caused that mess in the house? At this moment, Kari was as rigid as a stone statue. Even though I had been psychologically prepared for a long time. At this moment, my heart still hurt so much that I could hardly breathe. I looked at the man in front of me and said word by word, Kari, I'm telling you clearly. Bailey is hateful. But you're even less forgivable. I won't forgive you. What's more, I hope your soul will never find peace. Because this is what you owe me. Our child. And Lucky. Kari and I went through the divorce procedures 2 days later. The love fairy tale ended too suddenly. And everyone was shocked. Many people were openly or secretly asking about the reason. Especially Aunt Fang upstairs, who was keen on gossip. I met Aunt Fang when I came back to sell the house a month later. Aunt Fang pulled me to talk. Mrs. Kari. Oh no, no. Miss Judith. I told you that your neighbor had bad intentions. But fortunately, even though you got divorced, she didn't get anything. She was in that excited state again when talking about gossip. Let me tell you some good news that makes people feel relieved. My nephew works in Mr. Kari's company. That woman went there and made a big scene. Your ex-husband even slapped her in public. I heard that the police came too. Hey. I haven't finished talking. Why are you leaving? I wasn't interested in what happened to Kari and Bailey later. As for their ending, I had already predicted that it wouldn't be good. Bailey was not at all the elegant woman she appeared to be on the outside. Even in her eyes, there were clearly shrewdness, calculation, and greed. Such a person couldn't accept that Kari left the marriage with nothing. Yes, when Kari and I got divorced, all of our joint property belonged to me. Just based on the evidence in my hands. It was enough for me to get the vast majority of it. And a small part was Kari's self-righteous compensation, including the love nest he had secretly arranged for Bailey. But these things were far from enough to make up for what I had lost. Instead, when we came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau that day, something he said made my heart stir. Kari said, lucky. I just sent it away 2 years ago. Someone adopted it. And that person promised to take good care of it. I drew a clear line with Kari and completely removed him from my world. I became a volunteer caregiver in the convalescent center. Of course. I had my own selfish motives. While killing time, I could play with Cool whenever I wanted. Of course. I also had to pay a certain price. Judith. Are you bringing food to drive? Milo again? I smiled and said. I was forced to feed Cool's owner. The head nurse stuck out half of her body to stop me. Dr. Five. Milo has been looking so cheerful lately, as if he's encountered something wonderful. Are you two dating? I shook my head. Of course not. The head nurse, acting like someone who's been through it all, chuckled twice. Are you feeling shy in front of me? Dr. Brilow has already made it clear long ago. I casually asked. What did he say? A girl came to our hospital to confess her love to drive. Milo. Dr. Milo said that he already had someone he liked. The little girl didn't believe it and said that she hadn't seen you with a girlfriend. Guess what drive? Milo said to shut her up with just one sentence. I thought about how Milo, who was always sparing with words, would reject others and tentatively said, goodbye. And I won't see you off? The head nurse frowned and then imitated his tone in the next second. I'm waiting for her to get divorced. I sat on the bench in the small garden with Cool in my arms, enjoying the moonlight. Milo walked over with 2 bottles of beer and sat down beside me as if we were old friends. Do doctors drink too? I'm starting my long vacation tomorrow. He opened the ring pull of the beer bottle and handed it to me. Then rubbed Cool, who was sitting between us. Buddy. Would you mind changing your seat? Cool barked twice to refuse. You're being so bold because you have someone backing you up. I smiled. Dr. Milo. Has anyone ever told you that you seem to be a man of few words, but you can actually be quite sharp-tongued? Milo fell silent again. I took a sip of the beer, feeling a refreshing and pleasant sensation. I heard someone confess their love to you. Yes. I heard that you're waiting for her to get divorced. Yes. You're really sparing with words. You'll probably end up alone all your life like this. Milo put down the beer can and looked at me, with a serious expression on his face. I'm indeed waiting for her to get divorced. Has she got divorced then? Yes. Then why don't you tell her? Don't you know that many things depend on the right time, place and people? Right now, I don't have any of those in my favor. I put on an appearance of listening attentively. She just got divorced. It'll take time for her to rebuild her trust in others and her expectations for love. Besides, I also want her to know that I'm different from her ex-husband. So what? Let time prove it. Anyway, I have plenty of time. I looked at him and smiled. Dr. Milo. How old are you? Listening to what you said really gives me a sense of the bravery of adolescence. Milo's voice sounded a bit dejected. Judith. Actually, I really regret that I wasn't brave enough during adolescence. He looked straight at me. For example, when I saw her wholeheartedly chasing after other boys, I should have shamelessly stopped her at least once. If I had succeeded, maybe she wouldn't have to experience some of the pain. Milo forced a smile. She might never think that there was a boy who had been quietly watching her dance outside the school dance studio and who, because of her, was determined to become an orthopedic doctor. My heart couldn't calm down anymore. I always felt that Milo looked a bit familiar. And it seemed that I found the answer at this moment. It's just that some things didn't need to be said explicitly. Milo asked me calmly. Are you free next? Come with me to Switzerland. I looked at him, puzzled. My doctoral supervisor is a famous orthopedic expert. I've talked to him about your leg, and we've come up with a treatment plan for your situation. Do you want to take a gamble? At this moment, I suddenly felt that fate was really quite intriguing. It made people who shouldn't have met meet each other, while those who should have met just passed by each other. And fate has a mysterious and unpredictable power of its own, guiding those who are deeply trapped in setbacks to break through the barriers of fate and regain new life and hope. The autumn wind was gradually rising. Suddenly, I felt that autumn didn't have to be all desolate. Just like sunlight would always penetrate through the cracks, Extra from Kari's perspective, the first time I met Judith was on campus. She was carrying a school bag and pushing a suitcase. And her ponytail was swaying gently behind her head. Her oval face was flushed from the sun. But that didn't prevent her from being so charming that just by standing there, she made everything around her seem dull in comparison. She seemed to be lost. So I took the initiative to go up to her and said, "Classmate, let me help you." I didn't expect that just with this one sentence, my life would change completely. When Judith handed me the love letter for the first time, I was flustered and astonished. I didn't expect that in this era when communication devices were so convenient, she would confess her love to me in the most traditional way. She said that she wanted me to see her sincerity. I was both flattered and scared. I didn't expect a girl like her would say that she liked me. But from the first moment I saw her, I knew that we were from different worlds. Judith got out of a luxury car. The price of that car usually appeared in magazines for the wealthy. As for me, I was a poor student who had to rely on student loans and part-time jobs to complete my studies smoothly. I grew up in a shanty town. My parents passed away early, and I was brought up by the kindness of many neighbors. The family next door, Bailey's father's family, was the nicest to me. Bailey's father. Well, he's Bailey's father. Bailey and I were childhood sweethearts. From childhood to adulthood, Bailey always followed me around. She said, "Kari, you can only marry me in the future." I took it seriously. So facing Judith, who was as dazzling as the sun, I never had any improper thoughts. Firstly, heading fulfilledly, I knew I wasn't worthy of her. Secondly, having fulfilled my obsession, I knew that one day, I would marry Bailey. I just didn't expect that Bailey, who had promised to marry me when my job got on track, would discard the engagement ring I gave her like it was something worthless. "Kari, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Only you took those childhood jokes seriously. Also, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Have you paid off your student loans? Can you afford to support me in my ballet career?" At that moment, I even doubted my ears. Bailey's betrayal was like a thorn in my throat. It hurt not only my self-esteem but also my inner pride. I seemed to be eager to prove something. On a rainy night, I rushed to Judith like a madman and asked her, "Do you still want me?" Judith was flustered. But not because of the question I asked. Instead, when she saw me soaked through, she hurriedly held the small umbrella in her hand over my head. "Senior, come in a bit so you won't get wet." She blinked her bright eyes and asked me, "By the way, what did you just say?" At that moment, I realized that there really were angels in this world. But I, with my own hands, broke the wings of the angel. Judith was outstanding. She was one of the few dancers who were selected into the municipal dance troupe right after graduation. I loved watching her stand on tiptoe in her white tutu skirt. With her long neck, she was as proud as a white swan. I was always grateful to have her. I just didn't expect that our peaceful life would be hit by a torpedo. Bailey was that torpedo. She came back with a big fuss and blocked me in the backstage of the theater. That day was Judith's principal dancer selection. This was her first time participating in the principal dancer selection, and I was even more excited than her. I had started preparing for it long ago. I just didn't expect to run into Bailey, whom I hadn't seen for a long time. That day, I didn't expect this. "Kari, you're quite something. You managed to win over a rich and beautiful girl. But you're a bit too shabby. You should at least change the ring on her hand." I admit that no matter how decent I might seem on the outside, deep down, Bailey and I were both vulgar. In the shanty town, we had done some sneaky and improper things, and tasted the forbidden fruit we shouldn't have. Her words were like hitting me back to my original state. After graduation, my business startup wasn't going smoothly. I wanted to give Judith the best, but my financial situation didn't allow it. I was so stupid that I used that ring to propose to her. Even later when I got her a more suitable and bigger ring, she would rather have the ring size adjusted than take it off. In front of Judith, I was actually inferior, full of guilt, and always cautious. Fortunately, having fulfilled way, Judith loved me wholeheartedly and always gave me encouragement, support, and silent companionship. When I saw Bailey again, I was extremely panicked, afraid that my marriage would be damaged because of her. I asked her, "What on earth do you want? I have nowhere to go. Get me a house." She said it casually and as if it was only natural. "What? Do I have to ask my dad to tell you for it to work?" A house wasn't impossible. But this woman was still not satisfied. "Take me to have a look at your current home again." Bailey looked at me with a smile. "What? Are you afraid? Don't be so stingy. It's not like only you have a wife. I have a husband too. Fear can make people lose their rationality." I took advantage of Judith's store in Beijing and let Bailey into our home. Then, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. My life fell into an irreversible hell from that day on. That crazy woman smashed up our home. And Judith happened to come back at that time. Our child was gone. And Judith could no longer dance ballet. I blamed myself so much that I wished I could cut myself with a knife. But I knew that I couldn't. I still had Judith. And she needed me now. I tried hard to make our life return to normal. But Bailey just wouldn't leave me alone. She actually moved to the next door of my house quietly 2 years later. On the surface, I was calm. But in fact, there were undercurrents surging in my heart. I went to see her and ran into her ex-husband. A pot-bellied Taiwanese businessman. What they were doing was obvious to anyone with eyes. I just felt that it was an eyesore to look at them even for a second. I thought that day wasn't suitable for talking to Bailey about things. So I went to the pharmacy halfway to get medicine for Judith. Recently, Judith seemed to be more sensitive than before. Once in the middle of the night, I found that she wasn't by my side. So I went to look for her in the room. The bathroom door was half closed. Through the crack of the door, I saw Judith squatting on the ground, with her head buried between her knees and her shoulders trembling slightly. She was crying. But soon, it seemed as if nothing had happened. She went back to the room and lay down quietly. I knew that our world had already fallen apart. I didn't know what to do to restore the peace of the past. Besides, Bailey was pressing on me step by step. I also didn't know what Bailey had said to Judith. I only knew that my life could never go back to what it was. Judith mentioned divorce to me. My world collapsed with a bang. But I didn't even have a chance to defend myself. It was true that Bailey showed up because of me. And those disgusting old things like flies did exist. The loss of our child. Lucky. And Judith's proud career was indeed all because of me. Up to now, I deserve all this. I really don't deserve to be forgiven. But I won't let the evildoers go unpunished either. After the divorce, Bailey still had the nerve to make a scene at my company. Actually, I've investigated. The reason why she played these tricks was nothing more than to force me to divorce, divide the property, and use it to fill the gambling debts of her ex-husband. Her ex-husband was abusive, and she didn't dare to disobey him. Once people have greedy thoughts, they will take risks. I directly submitted all the evidence of her and her ex-husband's unscrupulous acts for money over the years to the police, including the fact that she picked the lock of my house and entered without permission that day. The law will have its say on what awaits them. As for me, I looked at the bright moon hanging high outside and felt that my mind was becoming clearer. Without Judith, I couldn't fall asleep on my own. I opened the sleeping pills. The white pills were like tempting fruits, filling my palm. At this moment, I just wanted to have a long sleep, because when I'm asleep, my dream won't end. In my dream, there's my angel. Judith. The end.